I walked into my mother's house after the funeral with a sealed envelope pressed against my chest like a shield. My hands were shaking, not from grief alone, but from what I had just learned. Mom had left me everything: the house, the bakery, the savings account she had built over 40 years of early mornings and flour-dusted hands. I was still processing it when I heard my brother's voice through the screen door, and what he said next made my knees buckle. "She's a mess," Derek said, his tone casual, almost bored. "You saw her at the service. She could barely hold it together." I froze on the front steps, my black heels sinking slightly into the worn welcome mat Mom had bought at a yard sale 15 years ago. The same mat she had refused to replace because it still works. "Rachel, why waste money?" My sister-in-law Vanessa laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the humid Georgia air. "Honestly, it's sad. All those double shifts, all that stress. I'm surprised she hasn't cracked sooner." I pressed my back against the siding, heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it through the walls. My younger sister Brooke spoke next, her voice softer but no kinder. "Do you really think we can pull this off?" Derek again. The lawyer said it's straightforward. If we can demonstrate she's mentally unfit, emotionally unstable, whatever you want to call it, we petition for conservatorship. Temporary at first. Then we control the assets until things are sorted out. Conservatorship. The word hit me like a slap. Vanessa's heels clicked across the hardwood. She's an ICU nurse. She's been running on fumes for years. COVID, burnout, watching people die every day. We frame it as concern. We're worried about her. She needs support. "And once we have control?" Brooke asked. "We sell the bakery," Derek said flatly. "Split the profits. The house too, eventually. Mom's gone. There's no reason to be sentimental about real estate." I closed my eyes and forced myself to breathe. These were the same people who had called me dramatic when I cried at Dad's funeral 10 years ago. The same brother who had borrowed $12,000 and never paid it back. The same sister who had skipped Mom's 70th birthday because she had a beach trip planned. And now they were planning to declare me incompetent so they could sell everything Mom had built. I looked down at the envelope in my hands. Inside was the truth. Mom had rewritten her will 6 months ago, cutting Derek and Brooke out entirely. She had told me during one of our late-night phone calls when I was on break between shifts, too tired to do anything but listen. "They don't love me, sweetheart," she had said quietly. "They love what I can give them. You're the only one who ever showed up just to show up." I had tried to argue. I had tried to convince her that family was family, that maybe they would change. She had just laughed, soft and sad. "You'll understand someday. When I'm gone, protect yourself. Promise me." I had promised. Now I understood. I wiped my face, straightened my shoulders, and pushed open the screen door. The living room went quiet. Derek stood by the fireplace, still in his funeral suit, a glass of whiskey already in his hand. Vanessa perched on the arm of the couch like she owned it. Brooke sat cross-legged on the floor, scrolling through her phone. They all looked up at me with expressions I had seen 1,000 times before. Pity, condescension, the kind of concern that was really just calculation. "Rachel." My brother crossed the room and pulled me into a hug that felt rehearsed. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay," I said, letting my voice crack just enough. "It's just a lot." Vanessa rose and squeezed my arm. "Of course it is. You've been through so much. Losing your mother, all those long shifts at the hospital. You must be exhausted." I nodded, keeping my eyes down. "I haven't slept much." Brooke finally looked up from her phone. "Maybe you should take some time off work. You know, focus on yourself." I almost laughed. Focus on yourself was Brooke's way of saying, stay out of the way. Instead, I sank into Mom's old armchair, the one with the faded floral print that smelled like lavender and vanilla. I let my shoulders slump. I let my hands tremble in my lap. "I don't even know where to start," I whispered. The lawyer mentioned some paperwork, but I couldn't focus. Everything just felt overwhelming. Derek exchanged a glance with Vanessa. "Quick, practiced." "That's completely understandable," he said smoothly. "You shouldn't have to deal with legal stuff right now. Let us help." Help. In this family, help had always meant control. "Did Mom leave anything complicated?" Brooke asked, trying too hard to sound casual. Like debts or whatever? I shook my head slowly. I'm not sure. The lawyer said there might be some issues with the bakery. Liens or taxes, something like that. He said it could take months to sort out. Silence fell like a curtain. I watched their faces shift. Derek's jaw tightened. Vanessa's smile flickered. Brooke looked away, suddenly interested in the carpet. Good. Let them think there was nothing to take. Let them think I was too broken to fight. That night, they showed me to my old bedroom like I was a guest in the house I had grown up in. The sheets were fresh, but the door had no lock. My phone had mysteriously lost most of its charge, and when I asked for a charger, Vanessa said she would look for one in the morning. I lay in the dark and listened to the house settle around me. The pipes groaning, the air conditioner cycling on and off, footsteps in the hallway that paused outside my door before moving on. They were watching. I reached into my bag and felt the edge of the envelope, solid and real. Mom had been smart. She had known this would happen. That was why she had introduced me to her attorney 3 months before she died. That was why she had walked me through every document, every account, every contingency. They'll try to take it, she had said. Don't let them. I wouldn't. The next morning, breakfast was tense beneath a veneer of normalcy. Derek made coffee. He never made coffee. Vanessa offered to pick up groceries. Brooke suggested we all go through Mom's things together, as a family. Everything was a test. Every kindness was a thread in a net they were weaving around me. I played along. I thanked them for their support. I agreed that I needed rest. I nodded when Derek said I probably shouldn't make any big decisions right now. Inside, I was mapping exits. By noon, the questions started. Small ones at first. Had I spoken to the bank? Did I know where Mom kept her important papers? Had the lawyer mentioned anything about the house? I answered vaguely, carefully. Then, just after 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Vanessa practically ran to answer it. When she returned, a man in a gray suit followed her into the living room. He had kind eyes and a gentle voice, the kind that made you want to trust him immediately. Rachel, this is Dr. Whitmore, Derek said. He's a family friend. We thought it might help if you talked to someone, after everything. I looked at the doctor, then at my brother, a family friend. I had never seen this man in my life. That's very thoughtful, I said softly. But I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Dr. Whitmore sat across from me, setting a leather portfolio on the coffee table. I understand. Grief can make everything feel impossible. I'm just here to chat, no pressure. But there was pressure. I could feel it in the way Vanessa leaned forward, in the way Brooke's foot tapped against the floor, in the way Derek stood by the window like a guard. The doctor asked me simple questions. The date, the day of the week, whether I had been sleeping. I answered correctly but slowly. I let my gaze drift. I let my voice waver. Then he shifted. Your family mentioned you've been under a lot of stress at work, witnessing trauma, long hours. Have you been experiencing any confusion? Difficulty making decisions? I hesitated. Sometimes. Derek stepped forward. She forgot to pay her electric bill last month. Had to borrow money from me. That was a lie. I had never borrowed money from Derek. He had borrowed from me, but I didn't correct him. Not yet. Dr. Whitmore nodded gravely. It might be beneficial to have someone help manage your affairs. Just temporarily. Until you're feeling more like yourself. I looked up. What kind of help? Support, he said. Oversight. Someone to make sure you don't have to carry this burden alone. You mean conservatorship? I said quietly. The room went still. Vanessa laughed nervously. That's such a harsh word. But that's what it is, I replied. Isn't it? Dr. Whitmore cleared his throat. These arrangements can be very supportive for people who are struggling. I met his eyes for the first time. I've managed an ICU during a pandemic. I've held dying patients' hands when their families couldn't be there. I've made life and death decisions at 3 a.m. on 4 hours of sleep. I paused. I'm not struggling. I'm grieving. There's a difference. Derek's face darkened. Rachel, you're being dramatic. Am I? I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. Before you say anything else, you should know something. Their eyes locked on the paper. Mom didn't leave debts, I continued. She left assets. The house, the bakery, her savings, and she left them to me. Silence. All of it, I added. Brooke's mouth fell open. That's not possible. Mom would never do that. She did it 6 months ago, I said. Right after Derek asked her to co-sign a loan she couldn't afford. Right after Vanessa suggested she sell the bakery and move into assisted living. Right after Brooke missed Christmas for the 3rd year in a row. Derek's composure cracked. You manipulated her. She was sick. She wasn't thinking clearly. She was thinking more clearly than she ever had, I said. And she saw exactly who each of us was. I turned to the doctor. You should leave. There's no medical emergency here. No grounds for an evaluation. And if you file any paperwork based on this conversation, I'll have my attorney contact the medical board. Dr. Whitmore stood quickly, gathering his things. This isn't what I was told. No, I agreed. It isn't. He left without another word. The door clicked shut, and then the room exploded. Derek shouted. Vanessa cried. Brooke accused me of ruining the family. I let them rage. When they finally exhausted themselves, I spoke. I'm not selling the house. I'm not selling the bakery. And I'm not signing anything you put in front of me. I paused. I'm also not staying here tonight. Vanessa stepped toward me. You can't just leave. Watch me. I picked up my bag, walked to the front door, and paused with my hand on the knob. Mom knew what you were, I said quietly. She loved you anyway. But she also loved herself enough to protect what she built. I opened the door. I'm doing the same. I drove to a hotel 20 minutes away and slept for 12 hours. In the morning, I called Mom's attorney. Within a week, the trust was finalized, the accounts were secured, and a formal cease and desist had been sent to Derek's lawyer. They tried once more. A letter claiming undue influence. A voicemail from Brooke saying I had torn the family apart. I didn't respond. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Some people aren't worth convincing. And some doors, once closed, should stay that way. 3 months later, I reopened the bakery. I kept the name Mom's Sweet Spot because it made me smile every time I saw it. I hired 2 of her old employees, the ones who had sent flowers to the funeral and cried real tears. The first morning we opened, a line wrapped around the block. People I didn't recognize told me stories about my mother, how she had given them free bread when times were hard, how she had remembered their children's names, how she had made them feel like family. I understood then what Mom had been protecting. Not just money, not just property. Legacy. On the anniversary of her death, I visited her grave alone. I brought a slice of her famous lemon pound cake and a small bouquet of wildflowers. I did it, Mom, I said. I kept my promise. The wind moved through the trees. And for a moment, that was enough of an answer. My phone buzzed. A text from Brooke. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back. When you're ready to apologize, I'll be ready to listen. I didn't expect a response. That wasn't the point. The point was that I had finally learned what Mom had tried to teach me all those years. Love isn't something that demands your silence. Family isn't something that requires your sacrifice. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't to fight. It's to walk away with your dignity intact and your future in your own hands. If you're listening to this and something feels familiar, if you've ever been told you're too emotional, too tired, too broken to make your own choices, hear me now. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to say no, even to people who raised you. And you are allowed to build a life that honors who you really are. I'd love to know where this story found you. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. If this resonated, share it with someone who might need to hear that boundaries aren't betrayal. They're survival. And sometimes, they're the deepest form of love you can give yourself.